I don't want this to be about me. One of my favorite leaders in history is a British field marshal named Bill Slim. He commanded the China, Burma, India theater in World War II. And one of his young soldiers, a corporal, an infantryman in the British Army, who later became a world-renowned author named George MacDonald Fraser, who wrote the Flashmen series and also a nonfiction book called Quartered Safe Out Here about leadership in battle. And Fraser said of Slim, Field Marshal or General Slim never said I, rarely said we, and always said you in talking to his men. And I think that's just a beautiful way to go about life. So I apologize beforehand if I talk about myself or reference myself. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk about virtuous leadership. I just came from a funeral where we buried my Aunt Betty. Aunt Betty Bolgiano married my dad's brother, Charlie Bolgiano, and she was part of the greatest generation. I was an offspring of the greatest generation. My dad was a Marine in the Pacific in World War II. I was handed everything on a silver platter. I went to Cathedral of Mary Our Queen, was taught by Sister Mary Mora, who taught George Weigel. And George said she could teach a brick to read, and that's me. I went to Loyola High School, Loyola College. I never wanted for food, never wanted for anything. And what did I do with that? I did what most of my generation did with it. I squandered it. In the 50s and early 60s, you couldn't walk 8 blocks in Baltimore without hitting a Catholic parish that was full every Sunday. People didn't have to be told what virtues are because Sister Mary Mora taught them and they lived it at the kitchen table every night. In 2011, about the time I met Lee, I was a student and then faculty member at the U.S. Army War College. I had that God, family, job, country thing turned upside down. I was about job, family, God. And I got that phone call after I had a mole removed from my back from the doctor saying, Mr. Bolgiano, can you come in and see me? It's not the kind of phone call you want to get. Well, long story short, that mole metastasized to my ribs and my lungs, my pleural tissue, and I was given 9 months to live 5.5 years ago. I was laying on a gurney in the emergency room of Mercy Medical Center in downtown Baltimore, and the doctor said I had one of my pulmonary emboli, which is a side effect of this disease. And he said, Mr. Bolgiano, you're probably not going to leave this hospital. Is there anything you want me to do? And I haven't cried as an adult, I don't think ever. I burst into tears. I was a sobbing blob of mess. And he said, oh, I didn't mean to scare you. What do you need? And I said, I need to see a priest. And he goes, well, we just happen to have one. And the father's there a few moments later, and he comes in, and he was a little bit older than me, and he said, what's the matter, my son? And I said, Father, I'm probably not going to leave this hospital, and I'm probably not going to be in the right place. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, because I willfully disobey God. It wasn't because of all these poor folks out in our world and our country that have never been exposed to God and virtues. I had it. And excuse my language, I pissed it away. and I knew that I was going to perdition. And the priest started laughing at me. And I was so angry, I almost got out of the gurney. I said, Father, this is serious. And he goes, you must have not have paid attention to your catechism and Bible lessons. The only person besides the Blessed Virgin that we know is in heaven is St. Dismas, the good thief, the right of Christ. He goes, say an act of contrition, and I'll give you, now they call it something else, but I still call it last rites, blessing of the sick, ordination, what is it, deacon?
Today they call it an act of contrition.
Yeah, but the blessing of the sick now is, yeah, anointing. Thank you. I'm failing still. And I will tell you, I said that confession, and it felt as if a 1,000,000-pound weight was lifted off of my chest. And now I wish I could tell you in the next 5.5 years I lived a saintly life. I haven't. I fail every day. But very close after that, I get a message from Lee Thomas and Rod Lanciati, who were in a Catholic prayer group in college. I wasn't. I was too busy drinking beer and being a bad boy. And Lee said, you got to read this book. And I read it, and I was in the Department of National Security and Strategy at the U.S. Army War College, where we have 340 U.S. Army, Marine, Navy, Air Force, colonel level officers, and 34 international students coming for their master's degree. And I said, we got to have this guy come. We, at the War College, when I was there, during my tenure as a student and then a faculty member, had 2 secretaries of defense, 26 4-star or equivalent general officers. We had Bob Woodward. We had world-renowned speakers come in and talk to the 340-ish students every year. Alex Ivard came in October of 2011. You can find it on YouTube. Just Google in Alex Ivard, Army War College. Pull it up. You could hear a pin drop for about 10 seconds and then thunderous applause. Highest rated speaker we had at the War College. This humble, good, yet brilliant man who wrote Virtuous Leadership. It is game-changing. We are living in a society of frenetic intemperance. That's the only way I can describe it. The hatred, the vitriol, the freedom of which people now use the F word and profanity. Peggy Noonan spoke at the War College, and she said what were once vices are now government-sponsored activities: gambling, abortion, et cetera, et cetera. I don't mean this to be political. This is an apolitical effort, but we have devolved into frenetic intemperance. This is a way out. And I think it is absolutely beautiful. It was life-changing for me and my family. I got to say to my children, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I chose to go to my 3rd or 4th tour to combat and not stay with you. That's pretty darn cool. And I urge everyone, if you haven't read the book, read it. Read Alex's books. Contribute what you can. I mean, my wife and I, my family, we're not wealthy, but we don't worry week to week where our money comes from. That's a nice feeling, so we contribute what we can. But it's not just fiscal. It's not just the money, it's action, it's getting involved. And I don't make too many promises, especially on such important matters of this, but I promise you that this is a roadmap to get our nation and our world out of this frenetic intemperance, and don't fall into despair. I mean, my wife cut me off from televised news when I got cancer. I don't miss it, but I still read the news on the internet. And you'd think that we're going into the dark ages. Cameron and I were talking beforehand. Not so. This is a great opportunity for that renaissance of our spirit, of seeing God in the eyes of our fellow men. And as my first squad sergeant, Jeff Rosen, taught me, see the God in the eyes of the people you serve. Being poor is not a crime. I worked the projects in East Baltimore. You are here to protect those people. Now, look at the mess Baltimore City Police Department's in. I'm not throwing stones, I'm not pointing fingers, but I tell you what Baltimore City Police Department is most in need of is virtuous leadership. And sadly, that's what they're least likely to get unless we get engaged and tell our political leaders we need people like Jeff Rosen that say, you're, as peace officers, you're to be servant leaders. And in the military, we still are being held in high regard by society. But I will tell you, over the last 2 decades, there's been a diminution of that moral value in our officer corps. This can be a roadmap back to being servant leaders like William Slim, like Jeff Rosen, my police bosses, my bosses, Gary Harrell, and other leaders in the Army, and for you all individually. And I promise you, nothing but good will follow from this pathway. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you.